agenda is just to talk about some immediate priorities, and a little bit of our Vision Zero focus. And with some of these items to discuss which, from our perspective, I think as a group, as a task force, we are interested in making sure that we're hitting those immediate priorities, from the pedestrian safety task force recommendation document, especially those, really immediate and short-term goals. So I was curious, and this might already have been in the plans to do tonight, but I was curious if maybe if Doug or Leslie could provide somewhat of an update on where we are with some of those items.
It is included in item 3C, with some other updates, but I'm certainly glad to break out just the pedestrian safety task force priorities and discuss them now, if that's what the group would like.
Yeah, I think so. I think, yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and I'll just open that report now, if that's okay. So
That's perfect. Thank you.
and I'll leave it off the end since we're going to that one. Let's see here. Sorry, 1 second. Try one more time. Okay. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Then I'll just kind of go through, especially the ones that that pertain to me, and Leslie, please jump in if I miss something, or one of the others that are not in my purview. So of course we have these items in yellow here are the immediate priority action items. And of course, we have committed to the Vision Zero initiative and adopted its framework. So the next item is eliminate right turn on red in the downtown commercial area, then adjust signal timing to allow leading pedestrian crossings without concurrent green lights for vehicles. So just in general, what we are doing there is we've gotten approval from the NCDOT to change our pedestrian phases for the downtown signals. That's the 3 signals at South Street, Chairman Blake, Main Concord, and Main Griffith, such that a vehicle will not have a protected left turn while a pedestrian has a crossing signal. So that's called separating those phases. So that eliminates there the possibility of a left turning vehicle hitting a pedestrian unless that left turn vehicle runs a red light. For the right turn movement and the possibility of a right turning vehicle hitting a pedestrian, we have a different configuration there. What that will be is when a pedestrian actuates the crossing button there, a light will illuminate that's hung up in front of the signal head up near where the traffic signal head is. And that light is a message board that says no right on red. So we got both of these approved with the NCDOT. They do manage those 3 signals, and very glad to see them accommodate that. There is some impact on traffic operations, but we have a better person there now in terms of understanding our conditions downtown. So what we did not want to do, and I don't think has any legs at all with them, is to stop right turning vehicles all the time on red. And then you'll get a case where people will be stopped and won't be able to go right on red, but there's nobody crossing. So that's not something we're going to be able to get, but we have this approach with the LED dynamic message board. This is something that Charlotte Department of Transportation has used. And I think it's a good out of the box approach that will reduce that right turn pedestrian conflict. So just in a nutshell, those are the two things that we're doing to address those two bullets. That design is 90% done and is in NCDOT review. The town is on the hook to cover the cost of that equipment. NCDOT is managing the installation. So I have monies set aside in the pedestrian fund I have this year to cover the cost of that equipment. I would like for these reviews at the NCDOT to be going faster, but these signal changes got to be reviewed in Raleigh, and they have a stack of 100 plans to review. So that's where that is. This was something that was initiated really before the task force met, but certainly something that the task force supported and enhanced. Reducing speed limits to 15 miles per hour in the historic district is something that we haven't addressed yet. There's that and another request to change speed limits townwide to 20 miles per hour instead of the 25 that's currently the town ordinance for our streets. At this point, the police department doesn't feel like they could enforce a 20 mile per hour speed limit townwide effectively. So that's something that we're just going to have further discussion around. It's an interesting topic. And there's a lot of studies on this, so want to do the right thing here. In general, we at the town of Davidson believe that speed is controlled by the road design much more than the posted limit, and so we're striving for a road design that reduces speeds versus just posting a limit. We could ask people to go 15 miles per hour townwide. Being able to effectively enforce that's just another thing. So that's basically where we are with that. We're still reviewing that with the police department.
Can I ask you a quick question about that? So when you said
Sure.
it's not realistic for the 20 mile per hour townwide, what about the 15 mile in the historic district? Is that something?
We have steadily decreased the speed limit in the historic district. And by the historic district, I think we're just talking about the downtown area, maybe from Griffith to Jackson or Chairman Blake. So that's going to be an NCDOT request there. It is something that we can work on. In general, what I would say is that just the congestion downtown is the biggest impact there to speeding, and we don't write a lot of speeding tickets downtown, frankly, just because of the congestion there. So it's certainly something that we can look into. I don't think that's going to have any legs with the NCDOT because of their methodology of setting speed limits, but it's something we can advance. The last time we got something changed with them was out at Davidson Concord Road, where we got that limit reduced from 45 to 35 miles. That's probably been 7 or 8 years. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Welcome. So we've removed landscaping everywhere that we're aware of where it is has the possibility of blocking driver's view of the pedestrian. I think that this comment came from the report was mostly targeting the circles at Griffith Street. So we did make some changes out there. You may have seen them, and those happened, I think, either during the time the task force was meeting or shortly after. So
yeah, I think it was related to those. I think you're right.
Okay. Um, so I think this has been done. I'm not aware of any other locations where this would be a concern, but it's something we can keep an eye on. Repair out of order RFBs, we've done that. We have a lot of RFBs in town now. I think everybody's aware. Those are the flashing crossing signals. And I think we may have more per capita than any place in the world because we have a lot of them.
I do like them. Like, I think they're
Good.
very, very useful. I think the one at Baker isn't working yet, right? The
The
one,
one at Baker is working. We have two that have not been energized by Duke Power yet. They're still under construction. So,
yeah,
and that's at Faculty Drive.
yeah, that one, I mean,
Yep. And so that one and the one at Thompson Street have not been energized by Duke yet. I checked in with them today on that. I have not heard, but everything else in town is working, and we've
Yeah.
made provision to make sure that we have parts and components, which now have a really long lead time. So things that we could previously get in a few days are now taking months. So that's basically what we were dealing with. I feel like we've addressed that
Yeah.
as well.
yeah, I know that one isn't working yet because I use them regularly to run to the track. So
Yeah.
I've noticed that one is still not connected.
There's not a meter set in it. The meter is on the other side of Concord Road from
Yeah.
the campus, and there's
Yeah.
not a meter set in it. But as soon as there is, I'll get that one working as well. The police foot and bike patrol, I'm gonna have to get a little bit more information from Chief Dunn on that. I know that they have done targeted enforcement of the Main Street mid-block crossing now on Friday afternoons, and for mainly to help with kids that are gathering downtown
Yeah.
on Friday afternoons and managing that.
I saw them on Saturday morning. I ran from CVS on Saturday morning and I saw they were there. So I actually, when I drove home, I actually stopped and thanked them for being out there. So they were helping Saturday morning too. So that was great.
Yeah, I know they were targeting the farmers market as well. That's a chance for them to do community policing and just make sure that people understand why we put that in and that we do expect people to use it, and start out with a more of a community policing approach than kind of a heavy-handed approach. So that's what they're doing now. Same thing here with the citing motorist. I'm gonna have to get a little bit more information from the police department to work on this. Than not yielding. And the other one here is establish a vision for a Main Street pedestrian mall. That's really gonna have to be more of a long-term discussion there, because there's so many other parties involved. There's a balance there. And it's going to be difficult for that to be an immediate action item. They're changing the downtown area and how people use that. It's absolutely something that I think should continue to live with this group and get further discussion. On raised tables, this is talking about raised intersections. So it's kind of a speed bump that occupies an entire intersection. It has a little bit gentler approach than a typical speed bump did, a little bit gentler slope. It's a bigger area, and it's a way of addressing an entire intersection. We are looking at that. We've determined that for a road with significantly less traffic volume, that's about $125,000. So then if we look at doing that in the downtown area where we have a lot of traffic control costs to add to that, we're really looking at the $150,000 to $175,000 range for that. In addition to getting drawings approved with the NCDOT, change that in the downtown area if that's where we want to do that. It's also an option for a lot of other intersections in town, like Jeton and Pot Street. That area is a good candidate. as well as maybe Armour Street, Beatty Street. So there's some other candidates for that for sure, that aren't as difficult as the downtown area. But that's what's involved with that in the downtown area. There are a number of things in here that are sort of marketing campaign things that came from the Pedestrian Safety Task Force, and we're going to have to work on this a little bit more. It's not something that the town typically does in our communication strategy, this sort of marketing campaign, but that's going to fall on our communications director, on Amanda Preston. I noticed reading the report, there are a number of things in there that are kind of going to be either stretch or sort of something that is out of our purview that I'm just not aware that we've done that kind of marketing style campaign that is more of a private sector kind of thing, but it's absolutely something that we're going to continue to look at, but I'm going to have to get the communications director to help with that. Completely out of my purview. I don't know a darn thing about it, how to do
Yeah,
that.
and I do think that's something we need to look into, linked with the educational piece. And I don't know anybody else on the team has noticed it, but like when I'm driving around town, but also when I'm running and walking around town, I'm trying to pay a lot of attention to the increased visibility of our pedestrian crossings. And I've had a number of times where I stop for a pedestrian, and on the other side of the road, like at least 3 cars pass before the other side stops. And it's like not a one-time occurrence. And I've noticed it as well, like when I'm a pedestrian myself, but I just see other motorists not stopping at the same sense of urgency that I'm stopping when I'm driving a car. And I don't know if anybody else has noticed some of that behavior. So I think I absolutely love the new pedestrian crossings. I do think we need to probably do some more education around it and some more marketing around it, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nicole, I totally agree with you on that. I see that a lot, frankly, just being in that space often. And so I'm hopeful with some of these events coming up, potentially we can start having some communications or marketing materials we can have handy. And I know Doug addressed, changing the culture. So trying to kind of start being, having something more visible and getting that educational piece out there for sure.
Yeah, it's absolutely a very important consideration. And I would say that I feel like we're making progress in compliance and yielding. I don't feel like we're making progress fast enough. But for instance, had a contractor in town last week and we were in a crosswalk and he said, geez, people stop here. Well, not as much as we would like, but probably a lot more than where they're from. I don't even know where that is. But when you stop and then someone's going the other way and they're not clued in or not paying attention or they're not from here or whatever, they're learning from you. And so that's good. People see you stopping, going the other way, and they stop. And that's an opportunity for them to learn that that's what you need to do there. And hopefully they'll do it the next time when you're not there providing an example. But the other thing is, I think that the more that we've added these flashing beacons, the better that behavior has been.
Yeah.
It helps because I think people are learning it, just not fast enough for us.
Yeah, no, I agree with it. I definitely see progress and I absolutely love them. Good.
Okay. More of those coming. So, we got a number of things on here that, again, I'm glad to get more of a sense from our communications director on how she manages to do these and how they're going to be incorporated into the town communications. They're not, a lot of these are not really things I can comment on. I don't know if Leslie has anything to add on the communications and marketing items.
Not on the communication and marketing options, but a lot of these, the education and ambassador and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure we mentioned to you guys before the police position that Chief Dunn's put in and applied for a grant. It will be an education, a more education officer position that will do community education, and that will be their main focus. So hopefully we'll hear about that and receive good news and be able to move forward with that position.
Do we know, Leslie, when we would get feedback on that one? Because that would be really good.
Yeah, Doug, do you remember the timeline? I think it's. Is it I can't remember the deadline for it. I think it's an October position is when we'd find out about it. I think the grant's already been submitted.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the hardest part with safety education is that the people who need it are not the ones that voluntarily show up to get it.
Mhm.
And that's the hardest part, because the ones that actually come to these sessions, the same with bike safety, it's like, well, you already are willing and you've already open and you already know a lot of it. So they always learn new things, but it's like the ones that are less open for it and less aware are the ones that don't come. So it would be interesting to get some other perspectives on that. But I do think what we have been doing so far, we made progress.
Mhm. Yeah, and this police position, they would seek out those opportunities and they would be out more on Main Street and more doing those things. So it wouldn't be, I don't know if you're talking about like, I mean, they would have some like seminar things that, like you said, those people who are already interested will come to, but then I think they'll seek out people as well. So.
Do you all see any value in doing a more generalized sort of, like, just get people talking about it again? I mean, I think some of the value and maybe even some of the little bit of change we saw back in the fall on the part of people's behavior was because this was an issue we were keeping front and center with people. Is there value in maybe inviting Amanda to one of these meetings to talk with her more about, how can this group help? What could we do in terms of keeping a continuing message out there? I mean, it's a larger shift than just doing the direct education. I think is important, but I think it's also a larger cultural transformation that we were talking about. Do y'all see any value in that, or?
I think there could be some value in that too. I also know that with the pedestrian safety task force, Amanda, we can send things out social media wise easily. So if somebody could help kind of put some together to send our way, or maybe just some, if you emailed some messages that you'd like to see, I can put together a social media post to throw on. And we, that's one way, an easy way we could put stuff out.
I'm sure that we'll talk about this when we get to it in the agenda, but in terms of Town Day and the Bike Expo, could we get some printed materials or some stickers? I mean, Laura did that really nice Walk Safe Davidson design for us. Is there any way to get, I don't know, some stickers, some printed material to give out?
Yeah, we could definitely do some printed material because that's a lot of what we do at Town Day. So, if you could give some focus of what you guys would like to see, because I could put out what I'd like to see, but that might not be what you all are thinking would be what you'd like. So if you could help me guide that a little bit, we can definitely put some stuff together and get some prints, some printed,
I mean, Jennifer, you should
stickers.
say, but I thought there was, when we all sat down and talked, it sounded like there was some interest on the part of a number of people in the group to try to help that along and try to, supplement what you guys can do, knowing that you've got a lot of things on your plate.
Mhm. Yeah, if I could just have somebody do some Lego, or I can throw things together pretty quick. And I think that's good. And I think you're right of the conversation and keeping the message going. So yeah.
I mean, I
Leslie,
was
what
even
were
sitting
the,
here. Go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
I was gonna, so can you clarify the dates of Town Day and then also the Bike Expo?
Yeah, Town Day's May 7th. And the Bike Expo is May 14th, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, is there anyone who is really on this task force, on this call right now, really good at social media, interested in communicating with Leslie about some things to put out there in advance of Town Day, kind of to get, you know, some interest sort of that way prior to the event and then on event day and that kind of thing? Anybody really sort of talented at that?
I don't have any talent, but I know that Laura said that she would be available to us, and I'm happy to reach out, and I'm happy to help do legwork.
Yeah, and you know, Leslie, and you and I kind of talked about this as well. I think in general, our group is definitely interested in assisting in these items. So not just to have you guys, you know, read and sort of, you know, necessarily just report back on what you're doing, but we also want to be invested in helping. So if there's any place that we can jump in and kind of, you know, do something and pitch in, that's sort of where our mind is as a collective.
Like I said, I can throw social media posts together real quick. Now the printed, you know, like if it's a brochure or flyer, something like that, that takes a little bit longer, but it's just the content. I want it to be reflective of the group and not just of what maybe us as a Parks and Rec or, you know, project.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Do you
That's
think
something
if we
that can
got
work on.
you camera ready copies, you could get like several rolls of stickers of that little logo?
Yeah,
That Laura
I don't
did?
know in what time fashion, but yeah, so the quicker you could get things, and I
Alright.
already know some sticker places that I've done orders through. That I think
Alright,
given
I'll
maybe
get
a
with
2-week time frame turnaround.
Yeah, I definitely think, Connie, that we can refurbish some of what we already had and with the
Yeah,
floor.
I'm writing to Laura right now and asking
Yeah.
her
Yeah.
what it would take.
Awesome. And Leslie, did you say that inviting Amanda would be an option or no? So
I think, you know, I think from Amanda's standpoint, it might not be the best use of her time to come to a meeting because like I said, the avenues for us to go, social media, stuff like that. And if you know, there were ideas that you all had, we could meet with her to see if that's doable instead of bringing her to a meeting. Because, you know, there's a lot we can do. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did we ever get a grant from America Walks for?
No, we didn't. And Connie was actually gonna talk to them and see why. My guess is there were a lot of people that probably applied, you know, which is, you know, when it's for $1,500, you just never know how many people are going to apply. And my guess is a lot of people applied because there are some people on there that I wouldn't think would go for the funding. And so my guess is there were a lot of applicants and we weren't chosen.
Yeah.
No, if there's anything else there with the pedestrian safety task force immediate items that I can answer or give to somebody else who can answer.
As a resident of Spinnaker Cove, I want to say thanks for the crosswalk with the raised median there. It's already, it's surprising to me how many people stop. It's also surprising to see a lot of them zoom past, but still it's a whole lot better than we had before. And I think it's encouraging people to walk who wouldn't otherwise do it. Does me anyway.
I'm glad that's helping.
Do you think it would be useful to, in the next town messenger, to do something like, I mean, so we got this update, do some kind of almost like a checklist status report on, okay, this is what the task force submitted in December. Here's where we are with these projects, again, so that it feels like you build some good momentum and you don't get enough credit for what you get done. I mean, people kind of maybe notice it by osmosis, but
I like that.
it
Linking it
seems like
back.
being
to-
more proactive. Yeah.
Yeah, I
And then
like that.
also it's kind of keeping it in the forefront of people's minds too.
Yeah. But I mean,
That'd
if
be
you
really
don't tell,
useful.
if you don't talk about what you do, people like it, the first day they might notice it and the second day it becomes normal because they already have seen it. So
Mhm.
telling it like, hey, this is what we did and this is why we did it and this is what it's linked to.
Right.
It also,
I think connecting the steps
Yes.
is critical.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it also,
Yes,
it also
linking it.
convinces people to keep on talking, right? Like we want
Mhm.
people to voice the concerns they have and help creating that culture. So if they see, well, I spoke up about this and this is what happened, it also tells people like, hey, you need to keep on talking about it, which hopefully then also influences positively the culture change that we want to do, because people see that there's a positive
Mhm.
impact from it. Otherwise, people
Yeah.
stop talking about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and that's
just feel
sort of,
like you guys should get more mileage out of it than you're getting. I mean, I don't doubt that you're diligently working through the list. It's just that we need to help you get more mileage out of that. Well, I was really struck
Wait,
by Angela's comment that, you know, she wishes that she could have the kind of civic engagement that we have here in town. So I think we should capitalize on that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
yeah, I like that idea, Connie. That kind of is a great segue too for something else on our agenda that our group had, kind of discussed, which was trying to have, potentially direct communication with the board, just sort of being able to update them on what we're doing, and maybe even invite them to, to also actively participate. So is that something, what do you all think would be the best avenue to accomplish that?
Jennifer, can I make one more comment on what Connie was saying on how to communicate progress before we jump into
Sure.
the board piece?
Sure. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think one thing that would potentially be helpful is with the different topics, Doug, that you were highlighting that we're making progress on, right? If we could potentially get some voice from the customer, like linked to some of the things where it made a difference, like
Mhm.
Charlie was saying, like, hey, I see a lot of people stopping. We might not be there yet, but I see progress. If it comes from the people from town as well, and it's not just us saying like, oh, look how great we are, this is what we did, but get the people that people know talk about it, so that it comes from our population, from the community. That might be helpful to just create that culture change. Just an idea. Sorry, Jennifer, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I think that's a great idea. I think,
Yeah.
having those sort of testimonies. I just feel like, gosh, you guys did all that work to get that mid-block crossing in town. And of course, people are noticing it. Of course, that's something that people recognize as a change. But being able to link that up to, hey, the town has made a real commitment, and saying it, not just assuming people get it, but saying the town is making a really specific commitment to safety on Main Street. This is one of the things we're doing. Hey, watch out. You'll see officers out there on a regular basis, maybe during Friday afternoons because we're worried about our kids and their safety, maybe Saturday mornings because we know how much foot traffic is down there because of farmers market. Just saying that over and over again, I just think that's like, you can't discount that.
Yeah, you could have like
The boost that gives
teacher
you.
or a mom of a kid or a parent of a kid talk about
Yeah.
support with the school, and then like a regular that goes to the farmer's market talk about it. Like I love that mid-block crossing. I think it's great.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd like for people to know what Vision Zero means in the community and not just be, within this small group of folks who, know the reasons we're doing what we're doing. But yeah, I love it. So yes, Leslie, Doug, board communication options or thoughts for that?
I mean, I will take a stab. You know, I think that's probably something that we'll have to work through with the manager and town and the assistant town manager to see how that might be scheduled or what it would look like. You know, the elected board, Leslie and I really don't decide what they're going to do and who they're going to meet, et cetera. You all can reach out directly to them, or we can facilitate something. I would say that you can start the question. You know, what is it you thinking of meeting with them periodically, or
Yeah, I think,
whatever it is that you all want, maybe decide what that is, and then either you can advance it directly with the board, or I would go through the town manager or assistant town manager. I think it's just up to y'all to think about what the ask is.
okay, yeah, and we will continue to think about that. I think for now, initial ideas would be just to really keep them, like even sort of what we're doing now. As we progress through this process, like what you all are doing, what we're doing, and hopefully as we see the culture change and the citizens become more educated and aware, just to kind of have that direct link to just keep them posted and keep this again in the forefront of what's happening with town government, and then with people who live here and people who visit here. I think is just a common theme that's recurring in this meeting, is we want to keep this idea of pedestrian and cycling safety in the forefront of people's minds, so that folks don't forget, it doesn't kind of fall to the wayside and just become one more issue. I think that's really crucial to what we're trying to accomplish.
And I'll go ahead and, since Austin's on here, call her out if she doesn't mind speaking on the communications with the board, because she and Jamie are the ones who do that communication. So Austin, do you mind?
No, not at all. I couldn't find mute fast enough to answer before, but I think most of the other boards and like the sustainability committee, we do quarterly updates to the board. Like we actually have it on the agenda. So that from a formal standpoint, that feels like the right way to go. But if there's more, pressing items or things you want to get in front of the board, I would just encourage you as a group to send things to the List Town board email. This is a very open and transparent bunch. And so as long as you get it to all of them, I would feel free to, I'd say go for it.
So Jennifer, with like the town day and bike expo of, if you're wanting board to come out and kind of help a little with that or be a part of that, work to put an email together from the group to send to them.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. And so potentially quarterly updates is definitely something we could at least try to do.
Absolutely. And I'll touch
Okay.
base with Betsy Shores, our clerk and master calendar coordinator, tomorrow to find out like the schedule that she has everyone on. But we can definitely figure out what that looks like and give you guys some dates so you'll know like when the update would be needed and that kind of thing.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And I'd love to talk with you guys on this committee about getting board participation in, especially those upcoming activities. So, okay. Awesome. Thank you. So kind of moving down the agenda, this wasn't listed specifically, but I know that as a group, we did want to touch on the option of using a consultant for Vision Zero. Are there any updates, or has there been progress with that process? Has that been started? Could you fill us in on where we are?
So I guess I'll go with that. So the town has statutory requirements for how we select consultants for a directive from the town board to proceed, with Vision Zero, and you all are part of that. So my perspective is that the process is request for proposals, so RFP. We would basically write a scope of what we were asking the consultant for, and scoring methodology, and solicit proposals from engineering firms. Then we review those proposals and score them, and then come together and discuss our scoring and basically decide what consultant we want to use. So we don't consider price during the selection process. We select just based on qualifications. We select the firm that we think is the most qualified. Then we go negotiate price with them. If we're not able to come to a successful negotiation, we can move on to the next selection. That's a statutory process for government with consultant selection. We just went through it with a selection for an engineer for a Greenway project. So just on a very general level, I would see this group and Leslie and myself sort of working together to develop this RFP or RFQ. They're kind of interchangeable. So this is just saying what we want the consultant to do besides just develop a Vision Zero plan. We're looking for something more than that. So that's sort of writing our scope of work that fits Davidson to make sure that we get the right consultant. So we need to have enough information in there that we can differentiate between them, because oftentimes you'll get proposals from 5 very qualified firms, 10, you never know, but we need to have enough in there that it enables us to say, this is the consultant for Davidson in our plan. So that's a little bit of work writing that RFQ. I'm glad to send you an example. So again, there's typically some scoring methodology in there, what you're looking for and how you're ranking them. And then again, we'll kind of go off and score the proposals and then come back together and sort of vet everything and decide what we want to do there, kind of compile the scores. That's a typical process. We are not completely confined to that, but if the town is selecting consultant, we have to follow that in some shape or form because it's a statutory requirement. So I'll stop there and see if anybody has any questions.
It's a statutory requirement to have the consultant or to go through the process?
To go through the RFQ process. So qualifications-based selection, we call that. And that's the, we don't have to have a consultant for anything, but if we select a consultant for above a certain dollar amount, we have to go through that process. And it's actually a very good process for something like this. It's something you want to do because it forces you to not just go out and find a firm that you think is good. It forces you to think a lot more about it and also define what you're looking for specifically a lot more than you would otherwise. So it's a pretty good process. The challenge is a lot of the time is differentiating, 5 to 10 very good firms. That could be the challenge.
But Jennifer, it does state on the NC Vision Zero implementation checklist, developing a plan and implementing a plan are part of that checklist for the NC Vision Zero.
Right. Okay. And how long is that
process typically take?
Well, we can determine how long we want to give the consultants to respond. With something like this, I'm probably going to say 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. And you want to give the consultants enough time to prepare a very good proposal. So you don't want people to feel like they can't get something together in this given time. And everybody's very busy now. That's a lot of these engineering firms or planning firms now are very busy and understaffed. So you want to give them enough time. And then, we would say how long it took us to write the RFQ. So, you think about writing it, let's say it takes us 2 meetings. I mean, that's 2 months with this group. To finalize RFQ, we send it out. We give them a month to respond. And then we take a meeting or 2 to evaluate the proposals to select a firm. You're into 4 months right there. And that's can be fairly typical, but with us having sort of a RFQ by committee and a selection by committee, that can take a while. I mean, we always have more than one person scoring the proposals. We don't always have more than one person writing the RFQ, but you always want to get more than one person reviewing the proposals and making the selection.
Okay, so just, yeah, Charlie, go ahead. Did someone have a comment, or I didn't mean to interrupt?
I do. I like what I get energy when we, as a committee, considering a Vision Zero, engage ourselves with things we have already identified and that are within our range of competence and planning. And I don't see great urgency for running ahead into a long process that might distract us from what we've got on the table already. That's kind of the way I feel about going through what Doug just described. I understand we're going to run out of competence and maybe our own energy and have to renew it, but I'd rather wait till that happens a little longer, at least.
I wonder too about, yeah, I mean, Charlie, I'm in agreement with that. I think we already have so much information and so many recommendations and man hours put into that pedestrian safety task force report. So a lot that we can work towards.
And Charlie, I totally agree with that as well. But what the plan will help also is we have a lot on the pedestrian side with what the pedestrian safety task force did. And so we can work on that. We don't have a lot on the motorist side or on the bicycle side because we haven't had a task force do that. So, this plan will help us combine those into the Vision Zero, because that's what Vision Zero is. So while the plan's being done, we can work on those pedestrian recommendations, but yet we'll be able to get the data and the information we need from the motorist deaths and the motorist accidents and the bicycle as well.
Yeah, thanks for the encouragement, Leslie.
One of the things that occurs to me is that Vision Zero is really kind of a process and methodology. I think I look at these things as a way to get to things that you would not have gotten to as part of everyday business, and so I tend to be skeptical of these things and say, well, we're already doing this, we're already doing that, and we had a lot of this in the private sector and went through all the Six Sigma and everything. And I think that's really what we have signed up for with this, is this process that I think the hope is that going through this process will yield things that we're not getting just from business as usual. And
This
I
process
think
meaning Vision Zero, you're saying the process referring to Vision Zero.
That's correct.
Yeah,
And-
I
and a
agree
big-
with what your assessment is there.
A big part of that process, at least as far as I can tell, listening to the folks that have implemented it successfully, is the plan. So that's a concern to me if we forego that or change that process. I think that's really what we have decided to do when we decided to do Vision Zero versus having a mobility safety task force or something like that.
Yeah, thanks. That's clarifying to me.
And I think as Leslie said, I think this could be done concurrently with the other things that we're doing. That they don't have to go consecutively, they can be done at the same time.
There's never any reason to stop doing this work here.
Right.
Because we're in a plan. That absolutely not. I mean, I think that's part of it, but there's things that we are doing from the pedestrian safety task force. There's things that we're doing with the mobility committee that we're getting ready to talk about. There's things the police department are doing. Those are going to go on concurrently.
Right.
And there are things that we were doing before the pedestrian safety task force. So we can't stop doing any of these things. They're funded and we're obligated to get them done. This is another thing. So.
Okay, did anybody else have any comments on that portion?
So I'm thinking, yeah, there has to be process, but is there a reason? Like, Doug, did I hear you say at the last meeting the town was considering spending about $50,000? Didn't you throw out that figure?
That's correct. Yeah, that's a number that I got from a consultant that has done these plans and is familiar with the town of Davidson, not necessarily one we would select, but that's where I got that. And that's what we just call a budget number here. We don't know what the actual amount would be. So to get us in the ballpark.
So this is, I think, an incredibly naive question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, and then you can bat it down. At one point, we talked about, doing something to really contribute to the conversation and to the educating people about road safety and pedestrian safety, and the concept of a traffic guard. And Charlie can actually speak to because I think it came out of their committee, but this concept of a traffic guard and a little play space that gives kids and parents a place to engage and practice how to be safe pedestrians and safe cyclists. Is there any reason to say, well, if the town is willing to spend $50,000 on a planning process, would the towns take some of that money and put it to developing? And I know you can't go out and dig tomorrow, but saying, let's see if we can, let's investigate this. Let's investigate what this traffic garden concept is. It would be something that's tangible. It'd be something that would be right there in front of people and speak to the commitment while the engineering process plays itself out as it relates to infrastructure and road safety. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, dollars are always competing with other needs. I would say for those particular things, the two that you mentioned, they absolutely could be going on concurrently. We could spend $50,000 on a plan, and we could also spend $50,000 on a traffic garden. We are spending well over that now for some of the other things that came from the task force. So, I mean, I don't think that this is that has to be either or. I guess I would say that. But yes, there's other things we could do with $50,000. We feel like we have a directive. This is what the pedestrian safety task force wants to do. So that's why we might feel justified in spending the money. And that we also feel like the plan is an integral part of it. And we feel that way because that's what the state staff and the other towns are telling us.
So
Hey,
how would we
Doug.
advance a conversation about, say, like a traffic garden? How would that?
We can advance that conversation or conversation about bicycle safety or accidents at an intersection or anything else, I think within this group. And it feels like that's one of the charges of this group.
And Connie, I'm meeting with Charlie next Monday to discuss it. I
Mhm.
love the traffic garden idea. I have always. And so, you know, that discussion is moving forward. I've been looking for grants. I've been doing some research on them. So, you know, I think that's the best way to teach the kids because the kids are backseat drivers. So they help parents learn.
Mhm.
So,
Hey, Leslie, is that something that could be possibly incorporated within the Beatty Park concept?
no, because of the easements on the Beatty Park
Okay.
property. So no, and so that's a probably big component of the traffic garden is the space.
Yeah, I'm just not
Um,
sure. I guess I don't have a clear idea what a traffic garden really is, but
Well, a traffic garden can be, I mean, it's a place where you teach kids the way of cycling, pedestrian and motorist all in one. And so it can be as simple as taking a parking lot and doing a makeshift one, you know, like we've done some in our little yard in front of the pump house. And we've done little ones, you know, so you can do simple ones like that all the way to where you actually clear some land and you put a paved streetscape down with roundabouts and it's like a mini
street. Yeah.
circles at 30, you
Yeah.
know, for kids to learn how to navigate roundabouts with pedestrians and stuff like that. And you know, pricing, it can be anywhere from a little bit to a lot. Yeah, there's a more detailed one that's on some land.
Yeah, you need quite a bit of land for something like that.
Yes and no, like I
Yeah,
think
if they can,
down by our pump house, you know, we were looking at one a while back down there. I want to say like 8 years ago.
that's one on a path. It's
Um,
hard to see, but
So,
yeah, I mean, they can vary in size.
and you know, some of them have like little houses and stuff on them. So yeah, I mean, they can go from the size of our lawn in front of the pump house to, you know, the size of the Davidson Cape parking lot, you know?
Yeah.
So, and it varies in price too. So, yeah. There's a lot of
It just
variables
seems
that
like
go
in this-
into it though. And I'll have, you
in
know,
this
Charlie
group-
and I'll talk about those. So,
It just seems like in this group, we need to be really cognizant of not getting so buried in the process and
Mhm.
planning part of the Vision Zero piece that we lose the active pursuit of things that will be tangible and obvious to people that live in this town. And part of that, like I was saying before, is pulling together and being more intentional about announcing stuff you're already doing and not just presuming people will get that it all fits into some broader schema. But it might be good to really think about, wow, what would be a really cool, tangible project that we could all get behind and try to move at the same time that we're doing this ongoing planning process, which obviously needs to get done.
Yeah, I like
Right.
the idea of somebody said in the town messenger, putting something in there. And I don't know, Doug, if
Mhm.
that's something, the stuff that you presented tonight, that we could put in an article in the messenger saying, here's what's being done. You know,
Hey, this is Austin. We can absolutely put something in the town messenger. And I love the idea about communicating. I mean, we talk about this in a lot of different areas. We really do need to communicate the wins, like the things we are doing
Right.
right and
Yep.
build some momentum behind it. But I just want to speak to, I think it was Connie who spoke right before. I don't think the two things are mutually exclusive. It is definitely a heavy lift to say we're going to advance our Vision Zero program and do all the things that we wanted, that we've already identified, that we know we want to continue doing. But that's really what we're talking about. We're dealing with a similar situation on sustainability. We have a framework already, but the board has given us a direction to we need a climate action plan and a sustainability plan. And what we're going to work in tandem with the sustainability committee to build that out. We don't want it to be, it's not instead of, it's really to advance where we are. That's the whole goal here, is to keep us moving forward, to give us the framework. The bureaucracy is always a threat because everything goes slow in government, but I think we can do it. And that's where we need this group to really help us keep it in the lines, keep us in the right lane, because we need to keep doing the things that we're doing and advance the priorities that you guys have identified, but also we've got to keep moving this ball forward. And that's kind of or at least that's the direction we've gotten from the board. And, once we have a consultant and we've identified where we're going, if we need to pivot, then based on data, we'll pivot then. But I think there's so much positive going on here. And I just we can't do it without your support and you guys helping us get this Vision Zero program off the ground.
I think I appreciate that, Austin. I think that's us as a group trying to find our sea legs and trying to figure out, okay, so what role are we playing here? Because it's new to everybody. So I think that's why we're raising some of the questions we've raised tonight, is to figure out, okay, well, what role can we play that supports both what the board says it wants to do and what the task force said it wanted to do and what Vision Zero contemplates. So I think that's why we're asking these questions.
Yeah, and also Connie and Charlie, and so many other, talented folks put a lot of work into the recommendations that we currently have. So not to, duplicate work or, look past some of those issues. And as Connie stated, get caught up in that process, because we already have so much we can tackle. But Austin, I appreciate you saying what you did. And I think as long as we're aware of, the fact that we want to see a lot of momentum and positive changes and keep us in the forefront, I think that's something that we as a committee can do. That's one of our most important roles, I think, as a committee. So, if there's no more comments on that, I think we can probably move to old business. I don't know, Leslie and Doug, did you guys already do the Town Day and Bike Expo updates? We talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, we did. So Town Day is May 7th and Bike Expo is May 14th. I know, gonna work with you all. I took from our earlier conversation a little bit about this, that we're gonna do some marketing materials and get some stuff out, which is great to hand out. And then as far as, you all being involved, we'd love for you guys, if you're able to be there, to help hand out material and talk from your viewpoint. And, like Charlie, if you're out there, to be able to share those stories, those stories that we've heard, like Charlie with the new addition. So you guys being a part that way. And, as a committee, you guys can decide who can be there and what time and stuff. And if you'll just let us know, so we make sure to look out for you, to hand you the material. And
Yeah,
your
absolutely. I'll
support's
get you.
huge.
Yeah, Leslie, I'll definitely, I'll get you something, sort of a roster, if you will.
I reached out to Laura by text and she wrote back and said she's got the camera ready copy, and if you will tell her where you want to buy rolls of stickers, or you want to tell us, go ahead and order up some stickers and we'll reimburse you, she's ready to go.
Gotcha.
So that piece of it we could get underway
Awesome, Connie.
in a day.
Thank you, Connie.
And Jennifer, if you get that roster, I'm happy to give some
Okay.
of my time.
Yeah,
on
I'll reach
both-
out
both
to,
days, so,
um,
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah,
I
I'll
just
reach
need
out to
know what
everybody.
or when, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Could
Yeah,
you
I will,
repeat-
I'll definitely be there too.
Repeat the dates on the May dates that you just mentioned.
May 7th is Town Day and it's from 10 to 3 down at the Town Green. And then the Bike Expo is May 17th. And let me pull those times for you.
I think it's the 14th.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
14th.
I wrote down the 14th. Is it the 14th?
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
14th. Uh-huh.
Okay.
It's Halloween.
Yeah, I put them both on my calendar, but I'll do whatever we think we should be doing.
Here we go, May 14th. And tell you what time here. The community ride starts at 9:30 and the family rides at 10:30. Doesn't say what time it ends. And it is being held at Bailey Road Park.
I can do that one, but I can't do the 7th, I don't think.
And I'll
Mhm.
send you as soon as we're working on the Town Day press release and gonna get that out Monday. I think the Bike Expo press release is almost done too. So as soon as those press releases are done, I'll send them to you so you have all the details and kind of know what
Right.
what all will take place at those.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks, Leslie.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And then finally, were there mobility or task force updates, or did we already kind of cover all of that?
Well, so there's some folks here that are on the mobility subcommittee, so I don't want to double dip with them, but just to say that the mobility plan that the town has adopted in 2019, there's a subcommittee that meets annually, sometimes twice a year, to review progress on those projects. And we went through projects with them this year and some of the policies for mobility, and also reviewed our capital improvements plan with them at the last meeting. And if it's okay, we have not gotten our capital improvements plan approved yet. We're getting ready to go into a workshop with the town board on that. But we do have a draft, and there's a lot of important mobility projects in there, a lot of safety projects, sidewalks, things that I think might interest this group. And so I'm glad to send you a copy of the working copy of the capital improvements plan if you'd like. Or I can hit it up very high level now. I'll leave that up to you.
I'd love to have a copy personally, Doug. That would be great.
Sure.
Is that something we could maybe put on next month's agenda? Because I know we're a little bit over on time.
Absolutely. So if it's
Okay.
okay, what I'll do is send the draft out to y'all now, especially since some of the folks have already been through a meeting with us.
Mhm.
I'll send out a copy of the draft capital improvements plan. And then maybe at the next meeting, if y'all have any questions or want to talk about various aspects of it, some stuff on there may not pertain as much because there's parks and but all the mobility stuff I think is very important, and I think it would be good for y'all to take a look at that, understand those big projects that are going on that are making it safer to get around.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that brings us to the end of our agenda, unless anyone had other comments or issues. So what I'll do, everybody, is just follow up with y'all in an email after this, just kind of recapping a little bit of what we talked about. And just as a reminder, our next meeting will be May 9th at 6 o'clock. We are going to stick with the virtual option for these meetings for now. I think that's what's best for most folks on this task force. But potentially that could change as we move forward. So I want to thank y'all for being here. I know this is a lot of energy and time and commitment away from your families and your lives. but I appreciate it. I really do appreciate you guys attending these meetings, you know, faithfully. I think that's to me, one of the most important, really important jobs that we have is just to be present. So I appreciate that very, very much.
Thank you very much, Jennifer.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
And Doug, Leslie,
Bye-bye.
Austin, thank y'all.
Thank
Thank you guys
y'all.
so much.